えるか。
この無垢もいつかは続けてしまうのかしら。
Infinite ammo.
Hi, welcome to another Infinite Ammo podcast special. This is another one-on-one podcast. We haven't done one of these in quite a while, actually. I think the last one we did was Resident Evil Resistance, but I'm joined here today with Miss Catatonic. I don't know why I was gonna say, I was gonna mess that up, but yeah. Kat's here. Nikki. Miss...
Yo.
And, you all know me as BioDevil Dom, and we're here to talk about Samurai Warriors 5. Something that I think both of us are, like, skeptical on, but also super hyped about at the same time. So it's going to be exciting.
Oh, dude, I'm hype as shit for it.
So, actually, right off the bat, I want to start off with number one. What were your initial impressions of Samurai Warriors 5 with some of the changes that were being introduced?
Well, this is the first time that we're seeing something of, Musou flavor with cell shaded art instead of like 3D renders or so, and I'm just like, at first, I was a little like skeptical about some of the redesigns, but at first, or my second opinion, wow, this game's beautiful. Going by from what Samurai Warriors 4 was, because Samurai Warriors 4 was very colorful, really bright. But now this just looks really, really nice. The colors are beautiful. The flow looks really nice. It looks like very artistic.
Oh, you're cutting out a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. I think I got what you were saying, though, that, like, the colors were looking pretty nice and the flow of the game is looking pretty nice, in your opinion. And yeah, I do agree, like, the color-wise, it's very interesting. Although, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Berserk Musou was cel-shaded, if I'm not mistaken. Berserk and the Band of the Hawk.
I gotta admit that that was one I did not get to play.
I played a little bit of it, but I really wasn't sold on it. It was very, from what I remember of like playing it, it just felt very slow. Not very like Berserk like, which is kind of unfortunate because I think that particular style doesn't necessarily fit well for that type of material. But that's a whole nother subject in on itself.
Yeah, that's how I felt about Fist of the North Star also, that it was a little too slow for me.
But yeah, like the cell shading, I don't know if, like, I'm not super big into fighting games, but I kind of got like a Samurai Showdown like vibes from it, like the more recent one that they just did. So like I just felt like it looked kind of like that, and it looked cool, and I liked it. I did like some of the character redesigns, but then there are some where I'm like, like, I don't know how I feel about this character, or like some of the weapon designs. They're like, oh, they're cool, but like, I don't know about this. But we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But yeah, for the most part, I'm like super hyped. I think this game looks pretty promising as a continuation to this series.
Yeah, it's definitely like when they first showed Nobunaga and Mitsuhide, of course, those two are pretty much the two, like, other than Yukimura, other than, say, like, Yukimura or anything, or Mitsunari or anything like that, when people think of Samurai Warriors, they think of Nobunaga and Mitsuhide. So seeing the two of them, together on the battlefield, it's like, oh, okay. So, and then, it would... Then, of course, they reveal that, oh, it's going to focus more on the Oda clan rather than the rest of the story. And they said this is going to be like, the golden age of the Oda clan. So
yeah, which that's that's actually the follow-up question, which I don't know if you want to read that off or not.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was leading myself onto, where it says, this game seems to be taking a similar approach to the Spirit of Sonata with its story, where the primary focus of the story will be on the golden age of the Oda clan. Do you have any concerns about this? Well, character cuts was a huge concern with me at first, because there were a lot of characters who I ended up liking 2 and 3 and 4 eras. And it seems that since this is a reboot, all those characters, which, as you can see with my avatar here, Ginchio Tachibana is she's my favorite Koei female and one of my favorites in the game. So to see her gone from Samurai Warriors 5 is a little concerning, but I really, not to say that I really didn't like the Sekigahara era, but the Oda story always really fascinated me more. So to see a complete reboot of Samurai Warriors 1, which I really enjoyed, would be pretty nice.
Yeah, I'm like 50-50 on it, because on the one hand it's like this is like one of my favorite storylines. I really enjoy getting into like the Oda clan stuff. Nobunaga is like, as far as like historical figures goes, like one of my favorite historical figures of all time. And then as far as like actual game characters between Samurai Warriors and some of the other like franchises that he appears in, like I've always just been fascinated by him. So to see a game that's more dedicated to his progression in terms of like his conquest of Japan, like it's intriguing to me. But I guess where I'm concerned, like, is, well, you mentioned like character cuts, and it is going to get brought up later in the document as well. But like, where I'm concerned more so is this game going to feel a little bit too much like a spin-off rather than something that needs to be a numbered title, where Spirits of the Sonata did really well in terms of focusing on one clan story. And, even though we did see like some of these other clans get involved, it's more so, hey, you're focused on just this one clan for the most part, and their story and how their like golden age and their rise and fall basically goes down. So I think that's where I'm a little bit more concerned as to like, is this just going to feel like a spin-off rather than a fully numbered title? And is it going to justify things like the changes and the cuts? Because one thing that a lot of people I notice seem to be saying is that this is kind of giving them Dynasty Warriors 6 vibes, where everything's getting changed and it's not necessarily good, but it's not necessarily bad either. So we'll see.
I did see a lot of people get the concerns, like saying, "Oh, this is going to be like Dynasty Warriors 6." I mean, I would implore people, if they have a a PS2, to revisit Samurai Warriors 1 and kind of see what's going on there. Because, like I said, if this is considered to be a reboot, then yeah, it's going to play how like Samurai Warriors 1 did, where it focuses on the Oda clan.
The Extreme Legends expansion, because the Extreme Legends expansion for the first game like fixes a lot of the problems that the first game had. So, and that could be another thing too that we're not really taking into consideration, that the vanilla game, like, it might do a lot of good things and they might improve upon that with, I don't know if they would do another Extreme Legends just given the whole situation that they had with Capcom under, I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but like there was a whole lawsuit between Koei Tecmo and Capcom with expansions. So I don't know if they would be able to do another Extreme Legends per se, but if they go about it the way that they did Samurai Warriors 4, where they did, here's 4-2, but make it more like an Extreme Legends, maybe that could be the game where it's like, this is the better version of 5, where we get all the stuff that we wanted on top of all the new stuff that they're doing in the vanilla game.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see another Extreme Legends because of what happened with Capcom. I know a lot of it was, well, they don't really tell you all the ins and outs of everything, but a lot of it had to do with the Samurai Warriors versus Sengoku Basara kind of thing where, I'm a fan of both series. I love Basara, I love Samurai Warriors. I think that's one reason why, and of course all the fans like to pit them all together. So I think Capcom kind of fell into that hole where they're like, yeah, we're blaming Koei for a lot of things too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it is one of those things where, unfortunately, like, we would not see. Like, I guess my thought process of it is like, we wouldn't see like a physical expansion of that. Maybe like, oh, here's a DLC and we're calling it the Extreme Legends DLC, but it's not really Extreme Legends per se. Where they added maybe a couple of more characters and costumes and weapons and stuff like that, along with scenarios. And then,
oh yeah, I see a lot of DLC. That's
yeah, and then from there go like, well, here's 5.2. 5.2 is the changed version. Here's all this new stuff that the vanilla game didn't have. All this rebalancing, new stages, potentially what is it, like 4 to 6 characters? Although I say potentially because like 4.2, and I think only because of circumstance, only had the one extra character, which was now Masa. So I guess it's up in the air if they would do more than the one character for a Samurai Warriors 5.2. But if they were to, they could go with that approach, I guess.
Yeah, I can't think of like any DLC characters that they could probably add for a 5.2 possibly. Like, I mean, I think, if it goes by from what Samurai Warriors 1 did, where Tadakatsu was only added into Extreme Legends, people are, we're having conversations about Tadakatsu possibly not being playable in this game. So he could be a potential 5.2, quote unquote 5.2 character.
Yeah, they've done that in the past too, where well, like you mentioned Tadakatsu, but we also had Hideyoshi. Hideyoshi was one of those characters, and then Yoshimoto Imagawa and Inahime, which I don't actually. They didn't even show her character in the original Samurai Warriors until they did Extreme Legends. So it was like her and Tadakatsu, like they didn't have their character models yet at the time. And also, which was interesting, they never did Honganji, which was in the game, but like the only time he's ever appeared and ever had any sort of like relevance in the series. So it's kind of an interesting thing. But to not go too off topic, going into like Samurai Warriors 2, they also did a similar thing where, if I remember right, Empires came out before Extreme Legends for that particular game, and they teased Kojiro Sasaki and Katsuie Shibata, and both of them just had like generic officer weapons, but they were playable and they had their own like unique abilities and whatnot prior to actually getting their specific weapons. I think it's kind of interesting though that like looking back at Katsuie in Samurai Warriors 2 Empires, he had a spear. Now going in Samurai Warriors 5, he's back with the spear. So
and now he's got the spear again.
Yeah. So kind of an interesting like turn of events with that one. I guess it kind of goes full circle. Full circle. Can I speak today? Yeah. So
no, that's okay. Yeah, it's definitely definitely telling, like, because I know he showed up as a unique non-playable character, I believe, in Samurai Warriors 2. I don't remember him so much in the Otis story. Oh no, yes I do. I'm sorry. I remember him showing up in Oichi's story a lot.
Yeah, because with him it's supposed to essentially lead up to the time where he dies with her after they had gotten married, years after the whole thing with her and Nagamasa and Anagawa. If I remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, because Yeah, because I know Samurai Warriors 4 actually put in the Siege of Odani, where
Yeah.
Oh no, Siege of Odani was in Samurai Warriors 2. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think in Extreme Legends, right? In Toshie's story.
No, Toshie's story was Shizuka Take for the first time.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's been a while since I
Yeah,
played
then they
2,
had it
so...
Odani, yeah. Oh, no, that's okay, yeah, because I frequently play 2, I go back to 2 every once so often.
Yeah,
But yeah, Odani was in... No, it was in Oichi's story, and I know it was Hide's story.
I guess...
Like, I think if you played on the Oda side, you try to get Oichi away from Nagamasa. Like, you try to get Oichi out of Odani Castle before something happens.
Yeah, I guess, because I'm thinking about that too now. Because this is an interesting thing. I probably should have brought this up in the question. We don't know how far they're going to take this, if this is just going to end simply on Nobunaga gets killed or dies at the incident of Honoji, and then that's it, right? Because we don't know if they're going to take it a little further and be like, okay, we're going to show you the Battle of Yamazaki, which is after he's dead, when they deal with Mitsuhide, and some of the events that are still major but are relatively close to one another in terms of the orders of events, I should say. So
yeah, because Yamazaki was only like 13 days later, so
yeah,
like it makes sense to have Yamazaki in there.
So I guess yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see how far they're gonna take it, because I mean, for all we know, they could take it a little bit further and go to the Siege of Osaka with, well, actually not Siege of Osaka, but kind of leading into it, I guess, with Hideyoshi, since he's also in the game.
Yeah, like it wouldn't make sense to not have any of that, especially if because like what I'm thinking about is I know that like Ieyasu and Nobunaga were allies or whatever, but like one of the biggest battles for Ieyasu was Mikadagahara,
Yeah.
and with Ieyasu's design right now, I can't see him on the battlefield at all. So
Yeah,
I don't think they're gonna have.
So the picture
Seems
that
like
they're
one battle they're gonna
showing,
take out.
he's supposed to be like a teenager at that time. So, and
Yeah, he's in his was it Motoyasu Matsudaira, I think design his
yeah,
name was. Yeah.
so like his, so what they're doing is they're basically explaining, and I'm assuming that they might be starting off the story this way as well, where Ieyasu actually is, becomes a hostage toward, or for the Oda clan, because of him getting captured and whatnot. So, and they I think there's this whole story synopsis on the actual Samurai Warriors 5 webpage explaining like the way that they're setting it up is he's hostage, but he also kind of grows fond of Nobunaga and really becomes friends with him over the course of the time that he's hostage. So
Yeah, I saw that in Ieyasu's biography, which also kind of gives me just a little bit of caution because it's like, did you just basically turn Ieyasu into Ranmaru?
yeah, he does look a little bit like Ranmaru. I was like, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Really, and I know it's really unrelated, but like Neo 2, right? Neo 2 has a very similar story to Samurai Warriors 5. You actually do follow Hideyoshi when he's Tokachiro. Actually, your character is one of two characters that's named Hideyoshi. So you have Tokachiro, who's Hideyoshi, and then your created character. But you all follow Nobunaga and whatnot, and there's not one single point in that game where you run into Ranmaru. He's mentioned in files, and his brother's in the game, but he himself is not in the game, and I thought that was just so weird. And so that's another concern there, where it's like, they kind of already cut him out from that story. What's to say they're not going to do it in this other game? And a lot of their samurai games do tend to have similarities, or they carry over like character models or in Neo's case, they had character models from the Nobunaga's Ambition series and weapons, specifically, Yukimura's spear from Samurai Warriors, put into that game. So if there's something from another samurai game from Koei Tecmo, there's a chance that something from that could have some minor influence or major influence, but it really just depends. And that's, I guess another concern to really think about.
Yeah, like Ranmaru is kind of a controversial figure in some ways. Like, like you want your game to be as historically accurate as possible. Of course they're going to put liberties into it because it's a game, it's a fantasy. But there are some points of Ranmaru and Nobunaga's relationship that's kind of hard to avoid. And they've been doing a pretty good job of it. Like with 3 and 4, kind of made it seem like they had like a father and son relationship. But like if you know the history, that's definitely not what the relationship is.
Yeah, it's bit of a history lesson. Yeah, Nobunaga kind of swung both ways. Yeah, so
the game kind of like lets you know that he did, like in Samurai Warriors 4, like in was it Conquest Mode, I think it was. There were some conversations that showed you that he swung both ways, and the one who I was really surprised about who did was also Munashige Tachibana. Like there were some conversations with him that definitely made him seem like, which was actually pretty interesting. Like if that's, I don't know about like, Japanese law and Japanese and everything like that. I know sometimes there's like little subtle hints to it. With Nobunaga, because it was a historical fact about him. Yeah, you can put a little liberty into it.
Yeah, I think so my understanding of it is that even though it is kind of controversial, it is something that's like well known in Japan. So I don't know, because like the other thing, like you remember I brought up the Honganji, that particular historical figure, and they haven't really delved into that character, and I actually only recently found out that was there's some controversy surrounding that, which is part of the reason why they haven't really delved too much into it with some of the later entries in Samurai Warriors, and part of the reason why they don't even have that character as a like playable character. So yeah, it is really interesting to think about.
Like there were reasons why they say, like, I think in Samurai Warriors 2 it's called the I think in Samurai Warriors 1 it was Issei Nagashima. I think I'm getting this stage wrong. Like the Psycho Renegade stage. In Samurai Warriors 2 it was like a village stage where they completely took out anything about like the Iku rebels and anything about Hoganji, because there was like some historical controversy there. And they were saying that like Nobunaga was justified in burning that village down because of XYZ, like things I don't want to talk about on the podcast because they're kind of bad.
Yeah. So it's a whole nother thing, but
basically the monks were coming down from the village doing bad things, and Nobunaga and his crew came in and said, "You got to put a stop to this."
Yeah, it's
unfortunately the only way to do it.
So I think we kind of covered this topic, though, talking about like different concerns regarding like what they could do with the story, DLC content, and I kind of want to lead into this other part, which is actually this is the first time that Samurai Warriors, at least mainline wise, right, has been on a Nintendo platform. So how do you feel about Samurai Warriors 5 being the first mainline title since 3 to appear on a Nintendo console?
Well, my concern was that it was going to be a Switch exclusive, but they announced it for the PS4, for the Switch, for the Xbox One, and for Steam. So I'm like really happy about that, because like I don't really have the money to buy a new system yet. So like I don't really want the Switch particularly. I mean, like if I got a Switch for like my birthday or so, I'm not gonna throw it away and say like, yo, I don't want this. But
right.
I wouldn't go out of my way to get a Switch unless Samurai Warriors 5 was like exclusively on the Switch. But I'm happy that it's on the PS4, so it gives me an opportunity to play. With it being on the Nintendo Switch, it seems like this game was designed for the Switch in mind, and that because of like fan responses and fanfare, that they added it to the PS4, that they're porting it to the PS4, that they're porting it to the Xbox One, just so they can, of course, make more revenue, make more sales. But it seems like this game was designed with the Switch in
mind. So something that I'm kind of like, what I was thinking about was like, the last time they did a Samurai Warriors game that was on, at least mainline, that was on Nintendo was 3, being on the Wii. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't particularly played it because I don't own a Wii. And I know that in Japan you could get, the 3Z version and the Empire's expansion for it on PS3. Mm-hmm. But as far as I've heard, 3 was not that good of a game by comparison to 2 and 4.
It was.
So I guess
I played it and I was a little disappointed by it.
Yeah, so like when I hear that it's coming to Switch, it's a little concerning. But on the other hand, I know people were really liking the the Chronicles handheld spin-off titles, so it's not too concerning. The other thing was like the visuals, right? Even though the visuals do, in my opinion, look good, like, are they possibly doing this because it's coming to Switch? And that's just something where I'm like, okay, I could see where some people might not like the visuals the way that they are with the whole like kind of cell shaded watercolor type of look, right? And I could possibly see that being an issue for somebody where they're like, oh, well, this game looks really bad because they're doing the cell shading thing. I mean, alternatively, I guess maybe the upside to that could be, well, if the developers are listening to potential fan feedback, they could add an option to just disable it. This was kind of something that we saw with like, the Resident Evil Reverse beta, which a lot of people didn't like the cell shading for that game. And then they added in, like day one patch. Just here you go. You can just get rid of it. So that way you could just look at RE Engine as is without the cell shading, right? So not saying that Koei Tecmo and Omega Force would do that for Samurai Warriors 5, but that could be something where if they see the feedback on that, maybe. But as far as it going multi-plat, I mean, I think it's good. As long as more people are able to play it. I guess what I'm more confused by is there's no PS5 or Series X/S version for this game.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder like how the PS5 is actually selling. And like, if I remember correctly, like Japan doesn't always, like historically, hasn't always jumped on the next gen as fast as like the Western fans have.
Yeah,
I remember like when the PS3 came out and Dynasty Warriors 6 came after that, people were still playing 5 on the PSP, and I remember like, a couple of Samurai Warriors games were coming out on the Vita, and it's like, who the hell plays the Vita anymore? I mean, I still play the Vita. And that's because it's there. I can press a button and it's right on.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, not having it on the PS5 is pretty curious. I mean, I guess they're just going to go with, well, if you have the PS5, you can play it on the PS5. It's not going to, like, look any different. It's not going to play any different. Like, I mean, if it does play or look different, it's because of the PS5 mainframe and not because of the actual game.
Right. It would probably, just going off of my understanding of it, it would probably just have its performance locked on PS5 and Xbox as opposed to just playing it on the previous gen version. I guess that going back to like how we were talking about potential expansions and whatnot, that could be a thing where they pull a Dynasty Warriors 8 where there's like, here's Samurai Warriors 5 Complete Edition, and it has all the stuff that the previous gen version had, but with all these new bells and whistles all on one disc, right? So, so I could possibly see that as well. It's kind of confusing, I guess, because well, and like you brought up, it could be a thing of like, well, the PS5, Series X, they're not really selling in Japan, and yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that, especially with what's going on right now, where people are a little bit more tight on cash and whatnot, and maybe they're just not really willing to go out and buy a console at this point in time because they want to just wait to see more games coming to these platforms, more games that might appeal to them specifically. And I mean, let's be honest, like Musou games they're a very specific niche. So like not everybody is going to get into these types of games, and these are definitely not going to be system sellers for everybody. I mean, I personally bought a PS4 at the time just because of Warriors Orochi 3 Ultimate getting a physical copy, but that's just because I'm like really big into Musou. But most people aren't like that, so it's just something to really take into consideration, I think.
And then what else? Koei Tecmo and Nintendo have a really good working relationship right now. If I remember correctly, like Koei Tecmo has done a lot of work with Fire Emblem recently, and a lot of work, like they put about, well, I don't know the percentage, but they did a good amount of work on the Super Smash Brothers as well.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they did a lot with Super Smash Brothers. They did Fire Emblem Heroes, and I think Koei Tecmo, other than what is the name of the Fire Emblem company right now? International Systems, I think it's called. Like Koei Tecmo practically did the new Fire Emblem Three Houses, so like the two of them like kind of collaborated more or less on it.
Okay, yeah. And then let's also not forget Hyrule Warriors, because they also have that series under their belt. So it's like, yeah, I could definitely see where like, okay, well, we kind of have you doing all this stuff. Maybe you want to do the next big Musou game for us, maybe. So like, I could definitely see that.
Exactly.
And I guess like in retrospect too, like when Dynasty Warriors 10 happens, right? Which would be Dynasty Warriors 9 in Japan. When that game happens, that would possibly also end up being on Switch just because of that working relationship. So. But
I could definitely see that.
But not to dwell too long onto this question, because I do want to move on and get to some of this other stuff. Do you want to read off number 4 for us?
Oh, of course, yep. What characters do you want to see added to the game?
Oh, there are a lot, but
I'll
do like top 5 just to kind of keep it condensed. Because if I talked about it, I think I would start getting into characters that we'd never seen before, on top of characters that I want to see like make a comeback. So I'll just keep it at like top 5 that I want to see like come back for sure.
Well, you can do like top 5 who you want to see come back and top 5 who like new characters.
Yeah, I guess I could do something like that. But then like, oh, yeah, that is tough. I'll just keep it to 5 because like I know like exactly what 5 characters I would want like right off the top of my head. So number 1, Musashi. Like, I am a fucking Musashi fanboy, and if Musashi's not in a Samurai Warriors game, I'm going to be very disappointed, because he's GOAT. So, that's number 1. Number 2, and I guess kind of to blend the two ideas, I would actually really like to see them possibly add in one of Nobunaga's relatives, either like one of his sons or his nephews or something like that, you know, just like something different where like, here's a person you almost never hear about or see. We're just going to throw them in here, because they kind of already did that with and we'll get to this in a later question, but there's a new character called Mitsuki, and they're implying that she might be Nobunaga's daughter, but like they're not like 100% flat out saying that yes it is, because it's an original character. So I wouldn't mind if they did something like that, but with an actual historical figure. So that would be number 2. So no particular person, just somebody within the Oda family, though. Number 3, I think, I would say, I would have to say Keiji Maida, because Keiji Maida is a lot of fun to play as. Powerhouse character. You really can't go wrong with any of the powerhouse characters in this series, or really any Musou game. Just absolutely body everybody. Number 4. So I actually have not beaten Spirits of the Sonata yet. I started it, but I have to get back to it eventually. But I do want to see Masayuki return. That is a character that I think has a lot of potential for like the series in terms of like just becoming a recurring character. Obviously Yukimura's like flagship character, and it'd be kind of weird to not see him come back. But given that that's another character that's very prominent in, the Sonata clan and in that particular story, I think it would be really great just to see that character become a recurring character. And then number 5, oh, that is a tough one. I'm trying to think. So I think, let's see. So I've covered like all these other characters, but I guess with number 5, Hanzo. Like, yeah, I would say Hanzo, because we have to have a ninja. Like you can't go wrong with a ninja at all. I just hope that if you're gonna bring back Hanzo, just make him look really fucking cool. Because I wasn't really digging that look in Samurai Warriors 4, but
yeah, he looks really a little cool. Too Power Ranger to me.
Like maybe make him look more like Ninja Gaiden-esque. I would love that. So what about you?
Yeah, going right off what you said, the funny thing is, in Warriors Orochi 3, Nene and Ayane were friends, and they gave Nene, like, a costume similar to Ayane in 4, and I'm like, well, Hanzo and Ryu Hayabusa were friends in Warriors Orochi 3, but they didn't give Hanzo a Hayabusa, like, costume. Would have been sweet to see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, to answer the question... Okay, if I want to go brand new characters, one of them would be Yamanaka Shikanosuke. But he doesn't really make sense in the game without Motoharu Kikawa. So it's kind of like, you got to put the two of them together.
So dynamic duo then.
Yeah, because they're rivals. Their stories kind of relate around each other.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
And Motoharu would make sense because he's Takakage's brother, which adds in another more replayable character. And, but the one who I really want to see added is, his name's Soren Otamo. But it seems like they're probably not going to go that far out west for this game, so I don't really see him likely to be playable. Although one of the silhouettes that I think I spotted was Motonari, so I'm like, well, if Motonari's in the game, okay, he doesn't have any rivals though. He doesn't have anybody to fight in the West, so Otoma would make sense for him. Who else? There was this really cool female officer who I learned about not too long ago. Her name is Ikeda Sen, who is related to Ranmaru. She is his sister-in-law, and she was known for leading a like musketeer group, which I think would be really sweet for this game. Like I think she would fit pretty well.
Oh, okay. So, kind of going off of that idea, that would be a really great way to introduce a new musket user that's not Magoichi. Like, don't get me wrong, Magoichi is cool, but like, could you imagine just having like a unique like variation of that like kind of play style that's very different from how Magoichi functions?
I mean, and like Warriors Orochi 4 really did wonders to Magoichi's moveset because his moveset was really getting bland. I wouldn't mind if like, if Ikeda Sen was like, I mean, I know it sounds kind of stereotypical to say, oh, she's a Bayonetta clone, just like Bayonetta, but that would actually be kind of cool. Like, we don't have that in Samurai Warriors. Like, someone just so outlandish with like style moves and all that. Like, Masamune Date was probably the closest to that, and he's unlikely to show up in the.
Yeah, which in theory, like, yeah, because if they're changing, we're already seeing like the characters are getting changed up design wise. Some of their weapons are getting changed, and it's possible that some weapons could get transferred over to other characters. So in which case, that wouldn't necessarily be out of the realm of possibilities in terms of like just implementing that kind of playstyle to another character where, if we're not going to see that one character, but to kind of preserve that playstyle is going to live on in another character. So I could definitely see that.
They could even give like the pistols to Ikeda Sen if they really wanted to. I mean, she's more known as a musketeer, but to give her like pistols like that would be pretty sweet. Again, that would be kind of reminiscent of Bayonetta, but why not? It's not like Sony's doing, or not Sony, not like Sega's doing anything with her right now. Might as well let Koei have a little fun.
There is one other thing they could do. Really quick, like there's one other thing they could do is that in Neo, Magoichi uses he has a katana and he uses a musket, but he kind of sometimes uses his katana like in a back, like kind of reverse grip type of motion, and sometimes he'll also pull out like a tanto. So maybe they could do something where it's like a mix of like tanto and musket, or like katana and musket.
Yeah, because it looks like they're doing like some kind of weapon switch. Like as we've seen with Yoshimoto, he has the katana and the hammer.
Yeah, so
possibly.
So it's possible they could do something like that.
And then like another character who I would like to see is probably gonna mispronounce this one. Fujiwara Hosokawa, I think would be pretty sweet. That's Mitsuhide's. I'm trying to think of what the relation is. His daughter Gracia is married to Fujiwara's son Tadaoki, and I guess that would make them in-laws or something, or I don't know how family stuff works.
Hold on. Fujiwara, who is it again?
Fujiwara Hosokawa.
I want to say he was in Neo 2, but I want to make sure. Like,
yeah, he's always been a character who fascinated me, like, because like when playing Nobunaga's Ambition, like on the Super Nintendo, like he was a character who always was like a pain in my ass. Like he would always come up and try to take my lands, or he would like kind of tell the Emperor on me because I was gaining lands left and right.
Yeah.
And he was kind of telling the Emperor, he's like, "Yo, watch what Nobunaga's doing. Like, he looked really suspicious right now. Like, keep an eye on him. This doesn't look right."
Oh no, I got him confused with the different Fujiwara and Neo. Never mind.
Oh.
There's a lot of characters in Neo, so.
Yeah, I always like those like shenanigans in the capital kind of characters. So like when Hisahide got added to the fourth game, I'm like, are they actually adding like people like him, like Miyoshi, stuff like that, like Ashikaga, like those kind of characters. Like, are we finally getting into the capital kind of characters? And
Yeah.
Hisahide was a real piece of work, and I don't really mean that in a good way. He was actually kind of disappointing.
Yeah, there's a lot of things they could do in terms of like if they want to throw people off in terms of like characters, because like you mentioned too, like we don't really delve into like the officers and characters that are mostly in the capital that kind of get wiped out really early on in most of these games, because there's like a whole bunch of history to delve into prior to that, before we even get into like, oh, these characters went up and they were like, hey, I'm gonna fuck up your shit because I want to conquer the land. So like, you know, it's definitely one of those things where if they wanted to be like super different, you know, they could start introducing characters we don't really see in these games like that.
And that's what I think that they could do with this being, you know, the golden age of the Oda. We could see like some of his enemies, like, you know, we could see some internalized Oda enemies, like Nobuyuki Oda. We could see like, was it the Kitabatake clan? They could show up. Remember who the other ones are? Rokaku. They could show them. Do a little more with the Saito clan. There's a lot of Oda enemies that we could, like new Oda enemies that we.
Yeah, we actually don't even delve into like the what is it, the Iga province stuff either, because that was a huge deal with like how that went down. So like, yes, it's a lot of different things and different directions that they could take this, and it's just a matter of how far they're willing to go with it.
Exactly, yeah. Like I'm curious. I mean, there's so much that they could do with it. Like there's like in the first 4 games, a lot of the Oda conquests were kind of like not watered down, like kind of glossed over. Like, yeah, you had Nagashino, you had Mikatagahara, you had Anagawa, etc., but you really didn't have a lot of like the because it didn't really focus so much on Oda, more or less. It kind of focused on you know, you had the Takeda, you had the Uesugi, you had the Hojo, you had things that were going on over there. So it felt like, you know, you had such a gap from Okizama.
Yeah, it was a very like 4 was a very broad game, and on top of that, when you start getting into like the Oda clan stuff, they were mostly focusing on like, oh well, here's Matsunaga, and he's here to fuck shit up for everybody. So like that was basically the setup, and like I thought it was an interesting like at least in that game it was interesting how, you know, they introduced that character as new to that game, and the setup for that story was basically like he's kind of the catalyst that made like Mitsuhide turn. In this game it might be a little bit different, and you know, and I know you still have like one more character to go before we like move on to the next question, which I'll let you go on
I
that.
will count actually.
But like in this game, right, that could be a whole nother thing where they introduce a new character and they kind of do the same thing but broaden it out more and really expand on that kind of potential of like maybe it was more than just that one character that really led to that like decision of like, I'm gonna betray this guy. So
Yeah, like every game seems to have a different reason for why Mitsuhide betrays Nobunaga, and I think it's because it was so historically ambiguous.
Yeah.
Like in itself. Like,
but I think that makes it
here,
interesting
like,
though.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, because there's just so many potential reasons. Like, you know, like it seems that they're building a relationship between the two of them. Like, I remember in Samurai Warriors 2, Nobunaga and Mitsuhide were really, really close. And you kind of see the breakdown of that relationship. So I think they're going to go a little more into it with 5. And I think, I remember in 1, they were getting pretty, Ranmaru was kind of in between them. That kind of like stopped them from getting as close as they were. And then 2 kind of removed Ranmaru. So it was all about Mitsuhide and Nobunaga. And now it seems like 5 is possibly removing Ranmaru in order to give them more of a more of a relationship, and then we get to see how that kind of breaks down, or we'll possibly see how it breaks down.
So, before we move on, I want to let you get to that one last character, so that way we can get on to the next question and kind of get this doc moving along.
I need justice for Masayuki, absolutely, because he did not show up in Warriors Orochi 4 Ultimate, or Warriors Orochi 4 or Ultimate, and I'm still salty about that.
Yeah, I actually have not beaten that game either. I started that one too, and I need to get back to it, but it's, I thought it was weird that none of the, like, Spirit of the Sonata designs were in that game either.
Yeah, and, like, they don't show up as generics either, because, like, you know, like with 3, if you played a stage and played as Yukimura, like, his model would be replaced by a generic, which usually was Masayuki.
Mm.
Like, to see him, like, not in Warriors Orochi 4, just, it's, like, stupid. Like, you know, I wanted to see his reaction to Yukimura training. I wanted to see how he would interact with, like, some of the Dynasty Warriors strategists, like Jashu, Sima Yi, all those people.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, yeah, because I think the 3 of them would have made such, like, a horrible, devious, like, trio.
I could see it, yeah. That would be,
yeah,
that'd actually come.
even
You
like
could come up with some pretty cool scenarios for something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's even a quote from Nobuyuki, like when he's on the battlefield with Jashu, and he's like, or he kind of makes a subtle. I mean, if you played Spirit of Sonata, he kind of makes a subtle hint towards it, like that he doesn't trust devious strategists because he's like familiar with devious strategists. So I'm like, oh, he's talking about his daddy. I'm not going to go any more into Spirit of Sonata because you have to finish it. Like, I'm telling you now, whatever you do, like, that is the best Samurai Warriors game that you'll play, probably.
Oh, I believe it. I already, like, from what I played of it, I liked that it had, like, the day and night cycles and stuff like that, and, like, I just really like how pissed Yukimura looks in that game. Like, I don't care what anybody says, that is, like, hands down best Yukimura design in the entire series. So
it really is. Like, I love it. Like, if you play the final stage with adult Yukimura, it's like he is like a whole different character, and he's Super Saiyan. It's so cool.
Yeah, I definitely got to get into that one because that one, 4-2 and Warriors Orochi 4, those are the 3 that I got to, like, get back into and, like, really finish because I haven't. So but not to delve on that too much, let's get moving on with number 5. Do you have any concerns about the various characters losing weapons that they've had since the original? And to that, I will say yes and no. Depends on the character, because like Oichi, for example, in some of the later entries, she lost her there's like this like little like yo-yo toy. I don't know what it's called actually, but it was trash. Like that is one character where I was like, if I had to play as Oichi, I hated it in like the older games. But in Samurai Warriors 4, I felt like she was a lot more tolerable because they replaced her weapon with something more unique. So I think it will really depend on the characters. Nobunaga, I felt like he was kind of flawless. So I'm trying to go in cautiously optimistic with his new setup, because this might be really good. Or it could be really bad, and it might not feel as fun as classic Nobunaga, which at that point I'd be begging to get back. And then there's also like Ieyasu, who seems to now be a dual sword wielder, and I'd mentioned, like, you know, I want Musashi to come back, and I think it's kind of weird that Ieyasu would be dual wielding swords, especially because, like, it, you know, contrary to popular belief, being a dual sword wielder, especially as a samurai, was just not common. And very few people did it, and Musashi was one of the only few people to perfect that particular, like, fighting style. Hence why he has his own fighting style and his own like teachings and whatnot. But So like really thinking about that, I'm just like, some of these characters, okay, yeah, I can live with these new changes. Like Imagawa, for example, I didn't care for his playstyle. So this new hammer like fighting style that he has, right, with his weapon and that, like, that could be great. That might be a good improvement. But then some of these other ones, they might not necessarily be bad, just kind of weird.
Yeah, Nohime is one that I'm like inwardly throwing my computer at the wall, like, because I didn't like her moveset in 1, 2, and 3. I loved it in 4. Like in 4 it got like a buff boost. And it was so good. Like she was like S tier in Warriors Orochi 4. Like how freaking good she was. Like I gave her a setup with like I put like tri-element, I put osmosis, and then I put like I put like her what do they call it when you heal health, like with the hyper attack? But it was because she was a technique character also, so you could do like infinite Musous like the whole time. Like I practically broke the game with her.
Okay.
So I ended up really liking her claw moveset. I'm not really digging the bow with her. Like she and this whole new characterization with this bow, like she looks so graceful and beautiful, which I don't have a problem with. Like that's always been Nohime's thing. She's like has been a graceful beauty. But now she's like one of those generic like waifu. I hold my hand to my heart. Nobunaga-sama, Nobunaga-sama. Like if she starts talking like that, I'm throwing the game out. I'm like, fuck this. I don't want no freaking shriveling waifu. I want my deadly Viper's daughter.
I think just a bit of a like counterpoint, and maybe to throw some optimism your way for like that particular character, right? The end of the recent trailer that they put out, they kind of implying that like she's expecting shit to kind of change over time, like, and I think the way that they're gonna set this up as far as the story is concerned is that like, you know, all these characters being young, they're acting a certain way, but as time goes on and as they're fighting these battles and their clan is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, they become the characters that we like recognize from the series overall, right? So like eventually she will become like this very like confident and, you know, arrogant, but like understandably so, like, you know, female character, because of, you know, like she knows who she is. She knows nobody's gonna fuck with her, right? Like that type of character. Where like same thing with Nobunaga, where he's like he becomes so confident, like not that he isn't confident right now as this like younger character of himself or characterization of himself, but you know, when they progress the time and he might be like, I'm so fucking bad, who's gonna really fuck me up? And that's when, like, you know, maybe they'll have Mitsuhide kind of like step up. So I can see this maybe playing off where like where they're gonna act a certain way for a certain point of time, and then they'll go back to kind of like what we're used to. That's what I think. So
yeah, that could be, because the quote that she said at the end was like she knows like shit's about to go down. Because like her biography was like on the website said like she's at first like uncaring and indifferent towards Nobunaga, and then she eventually starts to fall in love with him. So I'm like, let me guess, she's just like your typical cold-hearted tsundere princess. But because essentially what they did was like, I don't know. You've seen Cha-Cha in Spirit of Sonata, right?
I've seen the child rendition of her. I have not seen the adult rendition of her in that game.
Okay, basically
she's an asshole in Neo, I will tell you that though. Like
they basically put adult Cha-Cha's personality into Nohime.
Okay.
More or less. That's what the consensus looks like. I might be, you know, as I play the game, you know, I'm gonna see what it's like.
Right.
But right now I do see a lot of traces of Cha-Cha in, like, uh-oh.
I kind of talked about this earlier with this particular character, but like Katsue, for example, kind of went full circle with having a spear to dual axes to a spear again. And then there's also Hideyoshi, which I thought was kind of weird that they gave him a Naginata. And I guess my concern in this regard is that, like, are there going to be too many characters that have too many similar weapons where, like, you know, they might not be the exact type of weapon, but they're very similar in terms of category, right? Or they're very similar in style. And sure, they might have different fighting styles, but they're very similar, and there's a lack of uniqueness, I guess I should say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see, like, what happens with that. Like, it seems like there's going to be a lot of characters with, like, pole arms or some, like, long poles. Maybe, because, I mean, I think Tadakatsu is still going to have his Tomugiri. Like, that's his historical.
Yeah.
But it looks like... Didn't Katsuye and, Hideyoshi look like they had the same weapons?
Yeah, they looked like they had very similar types of weapons. Like, Katsuye looks like he has a spear, like, indefinitely, and then Hideyoshi, I'm not really sure. I gotta pull up the render for him, which I'll have to edit in the video later. But there is a render of him where it kind of looks like it's a Naginata, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, it is a Naginata, actually. So, like...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, like... I mean, it's there. It's cool. But is this going to be something where it's like, how many other characters have weapons that are very similar to these, and can they not, like... Are they going to be able to stand out from one another?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, you know, I mean, it could be where they have, like, similar kind of weapons, but different play styles. Like, I think Dynasty Warriors 8 did that, where, like, all the sword fighters had like, different sword movesets.
Yeah, I think Dynasty Warriors 8 was also the one that, if I remember right, it's the one that lets you switch between weapons. So, like, you could be a spear user, but then also, like, equip, like, swords or axes, and really change up the way that character plays just simply on weapon switching.
I think so, yeah.
So it is definitely going to be interesting to see. And for all we know, they could be dropping, which I haven't brought this up actually, they could be dropping the character switching system from 4 in favor of weapon switching from Dynasty Warriors. So that could be something.
Oh, maybe, yeah. I didn't even think of that.
So in which case, it could be a thing of these characters get their classic weapons, but they also get this new subset of weapons, which kind of leads into the next question. And I guess we can get into it right now if you don't mind. If there were to be any cuts, what characters could you see being cut? And they... I should note, and it isn't noted in the document, that it's been confirmed that there's only 27 characters in Samurai Warriors 5 Vanilla, which is about half the amount that Samurai Warriors 4 had. That game had 56 playable characters with 4-2. So, so I guess to kind of counterbalance that, adding weapon switching, you know, could make up for the lack of characters.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think they said any character past Honoji or Yamazaki is not going to make it in. So, like, the Tachibana are gone. Motochika Chosakabe is probably gone. Masamune's gone. Kojiro's probably gone with him. Who else?
Yeah.
Motonari and Takakage, I could see still showing up. Matsunaga, I could see showing up. Yukimura's out the door, you know. He's not old enough for this era yet, so I think any of his exploits will be historically put in by Masayuki. Like it doesn't make sense not to have any Samde. Masayuki will most likely definitely be in this game, and if he
might be the stand-in for him, which I mean I guess is fine, you know. At least it's like somebody in relation to that character, so I could live with that.
Kunoichi and Nene look like they're gone.
Well, and Kunoichi was an OC anyway, so that's understandable. Nene, I think And yeah, actually, I'm not sure if she was an OC or not.
Mm-hmm. No, she was Hideyoshi's historical wife.
Okay.
Which was weird when they added Cha-Cha in there because Hideyoshi and Cha-Cha did not have a relationship at all.
Mm-hmm.
So like they completely omitted that historical relationship. Let me see who else is gonna be cut. Kai and Hayakawa, I don't see them. Well, no, Hayakawa I could see still in the game. Kai, I don't think. Well, I could maybe see her in the game. Like they don't really have. I think because she's essentially quote unquote fictional, they could do whatever they wanted with her. I could see Aya still in the game. Kanetsugu, no, he's too young. Kagekatsu's too young. Yoshihiro Shimazu, I don't see him being added back into the game.
No, and that would be getting into like the western half anyway, right? So,
right, like Kiyomasa and Matsunori,
yeah, because that's like all like Kyushu and lower. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it has to, well, and I mean the trailer kind of implies this as well. It's a lot like Samurai Warriors 1 where everything is just in the heart of Japan. But I guess more so in this case because even Samurai Warriors 1 kind of delved into they delved into Masamune and some of the characters further up north like the Hojo. So maybe this game is supposed to be a little bit more focused where, it's only the heart of Japan, so we're not going to expand outward. So, and again, that might be something where they're only doing it for vanilla, and then with the expansions, they change that. And obviously, with expansions, comes more characters. More characters means more stuff to go through. Bigger thing though too, I guess, would be like if they did an Empires expansion for 5, which I really hope they do because I love Empires. And
Empires, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually just beat Empires twice recently, and once on stream. But
yeah, I saw you like streaming it a little bit, and I was like half awake on my couch watching.
Yeah, I was playing for like 6 hours straight, and then like I played another time, and I really got into it. I'll tell you more about it later, but like. That's another thing where it's like when you get into Empires, there's like not just NPC characters, but they add in like a bunch of characters to go through that are that you otherwise would have not seen in the mainline game. So I guess that'll be kind of interesting to see if they even want to do that because there are some Musou games that don't get the Empires expansion. So it is something to really take into consideration in terms of like who's getting cut, who's going to be added in, who's getting replaced, and really thinking about like how they're going to handle this game in particular by comparison to previous entries.
Yeah, and I'm like, I wonder how they're going to do 5 Empires because if they only have 27 characters in, Empires usually expands, usually puts everybody in. I'm like, well, characters like, Kozuro doesn't have a 5 or wouldn't have a 5 design. Motochika doesn't have a 5 design. Are you going to be making 5 designs for these characters and putting them into Empire? Or I wonder how they're going to do Empires. Like, are they just not going to have the entire roster in that, or are they just going to have everybody who's in 5 brought in for this?
Yeah, and then there's also, I guess worst case scenario is that they do it, but then they only like let you go through the heart of Japan, and that would just be like, well, that's just a regional scenario, and not that those aren't fun. I kind of wanted to conquer the whole country.
Exactly. I'm like, then it's like, okay, are they gonna do like generic forms of like Motochika, Munoshige, Kiyomasa? Stuff like that. Like that would just be weird. That's just like retroactive. Like at that point.
And at that point, it's just taking steps backwards because like some of these characters were just introduced in 4, so it's like we got these characters. Case scenario. Yeah, like worst case scenario is like we got these characters and we lose them. So.
Yeah, either that or they just kind of like copy paste them um into Empire's 5, and it's like, well, how do you copy paste? Because you got to do a whole new moveset, you got to do whole new designs, and
Well,
like, okay, never mind. Because
there's a
they
bit of a
might be saying,
caveat, actually. They could just be lazy like they are with Musashi and Kojiro, and they just keep the Samurai Warriors 2 designs. So
yeah,
just keep the same design that you've had since the PS2 days. It'll be fine. You know, it's okay. Nobody's gonna notice. Like,
exactly. I'm like, yeah, we all noticed.
yeah, it's I mean, I guess on the one hand, it's like, well, then I wouldn't have to ask for Samurai Warriors 2 costume DLC. Um, so, but on the other hand, it's like, I'd like to see some new designs. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they said with I think like day one, if you get Samurai Warriors 5, you get like the Samurai Warriors 1 costumes for Mitsuki and Nobunaga.
Oh, really?
Like,
Okay.
yeah, and I'm like, I really liked their Samurai Warriors 1 designs, but I really like their 2 designs as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is something that's kind of overlooked.
Yeah, I think for me it depends, because like I like some of the alternate costumes from 1. Because that was another thing we didn't really see in a lot of the later entries, because they started doing like EX colors, or they started turning like costumes into DLC. And certain games don't really have a whole lot of DLC, only for a certain subset of characters. Hi, Samurai Warriors 4. So like, you know, it really, really, I guess, depends for me, because like I really like Mitsuhide's alternate costume in the first game. And I also like Yukimura's alternate costume from the first game as well. I think those are like really great looking costumes. But then when it comes to like some of the later entries, like Samurai Warriors 2 and 3 Nobunaga Oda are like really good designs. Just because of the amount of detail they put into the armor and whatnot. And stuff like that. So I think like in that regard, like they should really look into doing like some of those other less picked character designs, because I guess another one too is like I was talking about Hanzo, right? His his Samurai Warriors 2 design is like, it's got more details than his Samurai Warriors 1 design. He's got like the hood, is got like claw gauntlet things going on. It looks cool. So like, I don't know, I just want more stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up what the other costume looking like with their Samurai Warriors 1 ult. And now I remember them, yeah. Yeah, I think Keiji had a really cool alternate costume also. Like he was like a bald monk, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, his was cool.
His was like really different, because I think he also has a bit of like the like monk or like kabuki style like makeup on his face too, just a little bit. So like it's very like very different in terms of like the other types of characters we see. But I guess since we're talking about costumes and stuff like that, we're already seeing pre-order DLC being announced for Samurai Warriors 5, and based on how 4 and other more recent Musou games have been handled in this regard, what are your concerns there?
Then I'm just gonna get really confused about like the season passes and everything. Like Dynasty Warriors 9 has like, I mean, I'm really confused with like the DLC practices for Dynasty Warriors 9, because they have like, you know, sets of costumes for certain characters. Then they have like certain weapons for characters, and they have like scenarios, and those 4 characters, they split a lot of them into season passes, and I'm like, you know, when I was looking up in the PlayStation Store about it, and it says like Season Pass 1, Season Pass 2, then it has like Season Pass 1 special, or like Season Pass 2 special. I'm like, what the hell's going on? What do I buy? Like, you know, I just want, you know, I want the hook swords, I want the claws back, I want this scenario, I want that scenario. So
Yeah.
I just hope that Samurai Warriors kind of keeps things organized as far as like DLC goes. Like, I mean, I see see a lot of DLC being added to this game. I see myself buying a lot of DLC. Sucker for Koei DLC, and they know it. They have my debit card number, so
they have it on speed dial.
They have that shit on speed dial. They're like, oh, DLC. Well, looks like Nikki's trying to buy something. All right, put it right through.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could see like, I know Warriors Orochi did like pay like alternate colors. I could see Samurai Warriors 5 doing something like that. Like, oh, let's give Mitsuhide a red costume. Oh, well, you got to shell a couple dollars for that.
Yeah, so Warriors Orochi 3 Ultimate, I don't remember for vanilla, but for Ultimate specifically, there was the EX color editor. And I think you had to beat the game at least once, or at least get to a certain point in the game, or rank up your characters up to a certain point where you could start editing the characters. It was like, I think there was a stipulation behind it, but I could be wrong. I haven't played that game in a while, but or no, actually I know what the stipulation was. The stipulation was you could not edit DLC costumes, and there were certain characters you could not edit the colors for. So for example, you couldn't edit the colors for like the Ninja Gaiden cast, or you couldn't really because I think Sophia from Soul Calibur was a crossover character that they added into 3. So you couldn't color her in a specific way to like be like, oh, I'm just gonna mess up all the colors and do whatever I wanted, right? But like for the mainline characters, like specifically like Samurai Warriors, Dynasty Warriors, and Warriors Orochi, as long as those costumes were in the base game and they were unlockable, you could edit them for the most part. I think there might have been like 1 or 2 where there was like the stipulation where you couldn't, but otherwise you could go from like the like fine little like strings in between the armor pieces to like the overall like outline and the hues and all sorts of different stuff. Like I made like a Dante edit color for like Sturkenberg, which that was like one of the few characters they did allow you to like edit the character for.
I remember.
So like
I think I gave like almost everybody a Dante alt.
Yeah, I did like I had like a black, like pitch black and like blood red kind of scheme going. Like I did that for Nobunaga and it looked really cool, like giving him like all black, or no, it was a all black cape with blood red armor, because I felt like that was like really fitting for that character. So but
yeah, I think I gave I'm trying to remember, like I gave Nohime like a Trish outfit, I think, and then I gave because like I put her in like her costume was all black, like her dress was all black, and I gave. And then I know Wojia had like a pre-made Dante costume. And then I remember I made Musashi. I made him into Ryu from Street Fighter.
Nice. Yeah,
actually
that gave me an idea for something later. Yeah, but like for me, like kind of taking this back to the question, like. What I'm concerned about is like Samurai Warriors 4, for example. It was good with like when it came to like you had these item DLCs and they basically gave you like these extra stages to give you more reason to play some of these other characters. So that was cool. I didn't buy all the stages just because I couldn't afford them or whatever, but it was nice. And then there was costume DLC. But most of the costume DLC was focused for the female cast. And I was like, okay, so we're going DOA with this, right? And, like, I'm not necessarily against eye candy for these characters. You know, and especially, like, you know, if there are people that want eye candy type of costumes for the male cast and vice versa. It's just more so of a thing of, hey, like, between all the like joke costumes and like these sexy scantily clad costumes, let's get some really cool costumes, especially for these characters like Musashi, for example, or Kojiro, where they've literally had the same look since the second game. or you know, where some of these costumes, they don't really look that good, and you know that you can make a very like interesting or unique costume, or you could bring back something from a previous game that people really, you know, enjoyed using. Or
Yeah, I think like the only like alt costumes that Musashi and Kojiro got was when they did like the costume swap, the Dynasty cast, like Nobunaga or not. Musashi was Zhang Liao and Kojiro was Zhang He.
they
And
did
Zhang He. I'm mispronouncing that.
they did they did like the yukata costumes for Samurai Warriors for Empires. So everybody had like a yukata, and then they also had like the that as like an item that you could get for creative characters. So it was like sure, that was cool, but it was like I wanted more like badass armor and stuff like that. Like I don't know, like when I think about like Warriors of Orochi 3, I got a lot of that DLC. But a lot of those characters, you know, they had like stuff from previous games. They had like all new unique designs that weren't in other games before. Some of the Dynasty Warriors characters, they were getting like stuff from like the Strike Force games, which those were like really cool, especially for like Xiao Yun and Lu Bu. So like when I think about that, I'm just like, I really hope this isn't going to be a thing of the only characters that are getting costumes are the female cast, and they're all going to be like just sexy costumes. Again, not necessarily against that, just you know, not necessarily against it, just saying that I want some variety in terms of like what we can get. But like, so Bob's for life, you virgin. Brandon. Yeah, it's so it is kind of weird. I did like the fact, though, just going on that notion, that Samurai Warriors 4, they did a really good job with how the DLC was handled between game to game to game, or from game to expansion to expansion. So most of the DLC that you got in the vanilla game, like the weapons and the costumes, that carried over, and also the mounts, that carried over into 4.2. Same thing with 4.2, all the like specific DLC that was like costumes or like character edit stuff and mounts, that ended up carrying over into 4 Empires. So I really like that, because it's like so if anybody's like looking into getting into Samurai Warriors 4, try to get as much of the DLC from 4 Vanilla if you plan on getting into like 4.2 and 4 Empires, because all that will just jump straight over to the following expansion, not vice versa though. So it would be forwards compatible but not backwards compatible, if that makes sense in that regard,
right.
But so I did like that. You know, again, it's just more so of an issue of like, well, I kind of wanted more like specific stuff. The music tracks were great, you know. I would definitely take like extra tracks to listen to, because that's always fun to get. But new costumes, potentially new characters if they could do it, and then you know, new stages and stuff like that. That's what I would want to see. But I'm a little concerned that they're going to go more onto the like DOA side of things, where there's like possibly 10 season passes, a bunch of sexy costumes, which, you know, I don't think I really have to reiterate what I've said before, but you know, you kind of get where I'm going at with that concern. So
yeah, like bikini costumes, ninja costumes, swimsuit costumes, bridal costumes,
Senran Kagura costumes, yeah, like
collaboration costumes. Actually, you know what, like how Dynasty Warriors did with like, I think they did like collaboration costumes with some anime. Like I could see Samurai Warriors trying to do something like
I guess that would be fine though, because it's like, at least it's like, you know, it's not going to be just like certain sets of characters, or like it wouldn't be like, oh, it's only female characters that are getting this. Like, you know, if it's like a mix of like, oh, some of the male characters that we thought would look really great in these costumes, and some of the female characters that we thought would look great in these costumes are getting these specific costumes as part of this cross promotion. So that's what I think would be the most fair and ideal outcome. But now that that's out of the way, I will let you read off number 8. Hello?
Okay, what are your thoughts on the original character Mitsuki, who is, according to the website, possibly one of Nobunaga's daughters? Let me tell you, I got a lot to say about her. You know,
Hmm.
a couple years ago, I was doing the whole Tumblr role play thing. Um, and then even years before that, yeah, I used to write fan fiction. I had a really cool Samurai Warriors fan fiction with, let's see, this is going to sound really funny, a adopted daughter of Nobunaga who has red hair, who has a black design, like black color outfit design, and she's adopted. In comes Mitsuki, red haired, black colored outfit, adopted daughter of Nobunaga. And I'm like, Koei, you gonna pay me for this? I know you've been looking at what I've wrote.
Yeah, you should sue.
And this character, yeah, this character that I made, I'm not gonna tell you her name because I'm completely embarrassed by my designs and by my fan fictions and everything. Her name also started with an M and an I.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
Koei, you gonna pay me up? You gonna pay me? My tuition's expensive. You know, I
Yo,
really
give this
think
woman
that
a job. Hire this woman
yeah.
at Koei Tecmo. I am endorsing this.
Exactly. And like you took my idea. I mean, of course the personalities are different. Like the character who I designed was actually a lot she was darker, she was really crazy, she was angry and very violent, whereas this character doesn't look to be that way. I mean, I don't really know a lot about. Oh, and one more thing. Their fighting styles were the same. My character fought hand to hand. This character fights hand to hand.
Oh yeah, so actually that's a good point that you bring up too.
Mhm.
Is that this could be our like Kotaro Fuma replacement, possibly?
Big. I mean,
Um,
Kotaro Fuma was a redhead.
well, just thinking about it from like the combat perspective, like that might be our replacement for our hand-to-hand ninja. Although, um, like this Mitsuki is supposed to be a shinobi, or technically kunoichi, but she fights hand to hand. I don't know if it would be exactly like Kotaro, but it would be interesting to see another hand to hand like ninja that we could play as, because we don't really have a whole lot of hand to hand like based characters actually when you really think about it. So
Mm-hmm.
so I'm trying to think like because like I wonder how they would handle that though, like because another character they did like more like hand to hand, or rather more kick based, was Naotora E, and
Mm-hmm.
she was a lot of fun to play as in 4. Like very fast paced
She really
character,
was.
very powerhouse character, like so. I wonder like maybe is it like kind of like a maybe they took some inspiration between both of those characters and were like, hey, we could do something like this and have another character that would be fast paced, powerful, but also very like enjoyable to play as for a lot of people that might not be used to like a very unorthodox playstyle for this series.
Yeah, because it looks like she has like some kind of gauntlets on, so she definitely fights like hand to hand. Looks like she'll be bouncing around a lot as well.
Mm.
Um, altogether, I think she'll be pretty sweet. Like, I'm not usually a fan of the Genki characters. Like, they just feel a little too childish to me. Like, but I didn't mind so much with Nene. Like, her Genkiness was really cute, and it worked well for her character. It didn't really work well for Kunoichi in Samurai 3. Um, but they pretty much fixed a lot of what was wrong with Kunoichi in the fourth game and in Spirit of Sanada. Um,
Yeah,
so maybe, but I mean, the best Kunoichi was in Samurai Warriors 1, so maybe
yeah,
that personality could get transferred over to Mitsuki.
Yeah, that is possible. I mean, the way that they describe her character in the character bio on the website, it's very much like, well, she's like, she'll basically do anything for like Nobunaga and the Oda clan. Like she's very loyal to them and whatnot. So I could definitely see that. Because Kunoichi was like kind of the same thing, where like she basically did anything for Yukimura and the Sonata clan. So I could definitely see that. What I'm interested in seeing is how they're going to handle that from a story perspective, because they're implying, oh, she might be, Nobunaga's daughter. And that, I guess that's another point of contention too, because we like also talked about the story earlier, right? So like maybe we're going to start off from this character's perspective and lead into like some of this other stuff where we might be going in, jumping around various points of time to seeing like other characters' perspectives on how things kind of transpire over time.
Right, yeah. Like, I mean, I think they're going to say that, or there's a possibility that she could have been adopted, or because she's definitely not Nohime's biological daughter. Like, Nohime is historically barren. She can't have children. So it's possible, like, Nobunaga pretty much just kind of plucked this girl from, because she's a Koga ninja. So, so from that clan, like, Nobunaga probably, like, plucked her from that clan and said, hey, you're with me now. Or it could be one of those, like, he killed her parents in battle and then took her as, like, a quote-unquote war trophy daughter, like, and she was so young that she didn't know, because it says she grew up, believing that Nobunaga's her father. So it's possible, maybe he plucked her up from wherever she was, when she was young, but I'm like, I feel like I'm reading a contradictionary kind of thing here, because it's like, okay, you're a Koga ninja, but you grew up believing that Nobunaga is your father. Where does any of this go in the timeline? Like,
what's the correlation between all this?
Right, like if you believe that Nobunaga was your father, why are you out with the Koga ninjas? Why are you not in the castle? Or where did you learn your ninja skills from? Like what's going on here?
Yeah, so there's a lot of like, I think there's a lot of vagueness with this character. So it's like, I guess as a point of interest, right? Like, maybe we shouldn't be focusing so much on like the characters we're already so familiar with, but maybe we should be focusing on this new original character, because there might be some things that we're not taking into consideration as far as like what they could be doing for this story.
I mean, she seems interesting. I mean, I feel like I'm gonna like her. Like, I like her design. I like her moveset. All joking aside that, hey, you put my original character into this game, where's my money? Like, that kind of thing. Like, I just think she's pretty cool. Like, hey, why not?
Yeah, I'm gonna just drop in her render here really quick. But yeah, I really thought that the character looked like just interesting from a design perspective, because some of it is like, I don't know, kind of reminiscent of some of the older Samurai Warriors games, but some of it is more like kind of give me some Ninja Gaiden vibes as well. So I'm like, I just really like the design of this character. Like I think what Koei Tecmo is trying to tell me is that we're gonna make your new waifu, and you're gonna like it. And I believe it too. Like that's the sad part, is that I believe it, because like, yeah,
she's definitely waifu material.
So,
like, I saw people on Twitter saying that she is like a blatant ripoff of Kasuga from Sengoku Basara, and I'm like, not really. I don't see where people are getting that from. Like, she's definitely not as hypersexualized as Kasuga is, and they share the same weapon, and Mitsuki doesn't seem like a walking orgasm every time Nobunaga opens his mouth. So, you know.
Now, I kind of get like, I'm trying to think. It's. I was just watching this anime a while back. She kind of reminds me of that one character in Rurouni Kenshin. The one like young ninja girl. I forget her name.
It's been so long since I watched Rurouni Kenshin. I don't remember.
Somebody's gonna like point it out in the comment section or something, but like, and she's an important character too. That's the fucked up part, is that I don't remember. Mm-hmm. I just watched this anime like a couple of months back. But yeah, she I don't know. I'm kind of getting that impression where she's like this, you know, because she's a ninja character, right? She's gonna be like this really like upbeat character, thinks that she can like, you know, do whatever she wants, or like she could do anything, right? Because of like who she is. And actually, I guess like really think about that too. Like, they could do this thing where the game starts with this character, but also ends with this character. Because if she's supposed to, like, she's under the impression that Nobunaga is her father, and after Honoji, right, if he dies and she's still alive, right, they're going to turn that into a revenge story, right? So,
like, I could see that.
To really, like, I guess, end on a high note, right, they could end it off with her, like, going after Mitsuhide. If they want to go with the route of, like, Mitsuhide dies, because they're, what is it, I think Samurai Warriors 3 was the one that did the whole thing where he loses Yamazaki, but he becomes Tenkai. Neo 2 actually... Neo 1 and 2, they talk about Honoji. Well, 2, you actually experience Honoji, and Mitsuhide becomes Tenkai, because there's a whole thing with that. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't played Neo, but so he loses his battles, but becomes Tenkai. In this game, however, they could be like, well, we're gonna just kill him off, because nobody really knows if Mitsuhide was actually Tenkai, because that's also another thing that people speculate, is that he might have been Tenkai, but it's not been confirmed or really denied.
Right, yeah, because I think what happened in Samurai Warriors 3, in Mitsuhide's story, Motochika died at Yamazaki, I think, and that Mitsuhide was alone in his ending, and then I think in Motochika's ending, he survived, and the two of them, like, after Yamazaki, they went on to conquer the land together, or something like that. But that could be part of, you know, that could happen at Yamazaki. Like, she could have, like, her revenge on Mitsuhide at Yamazaki after Nobunaga dies, if she survives Honoji. I don't know, they could go for a real tragic story and have her die with him at Honoji, or die trying to get to him.
I'm just like really thinking about the potential for this character. And
yeah, I think there's a lot that they could do with it.
I think, like, because there's a number of directions they could go with it. But I'm thinking about this from the perspective of, like, they went out of their way to make this whole new character, and they're not really talking about her. They're being very vague about her. So it's like, this can go one of two ways, where this is just a character that they decided to create from the ground up just to create some interesting plot threads, or this is really the main character, because when you think about it, Samurai Warriors has always kind of had, like, the flagship, or, like, one, like, main particular character. Every other character kind of is, like, well, you get to experience their part in this story, or you get to go to a completely different story or alternate timeline where this could have happened if the events turned out different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or some of the more modern stuff where it's like they try to be a little bit more realistic with how the events turned out, which I'm kind of 50-50 on. I kind of like the alternate history stuff. I feel like that's a lot more fun. But so for this character, right, they could go the route of like, well, original character, we put all this time into it, so let's try to really focus on this character's story and what they understand of like everything that's going on, even though it's really like, at least based on the advertising, this is going over the story of Nobunaga and Mitsuhide and their friendship and basically the rise and fall of the Oda clan.
Mm-hmm. Which I could see, yeah, once it ends with them, that Mitsuki could, carry on whatever the Oda's doing if she survives, like, Oji, and there's a lot of potential because she's an original character. They can do like basically whatever they want with her.
And I don't, I know we kind of talked about characters, and I don't want to go too much back into that because we gotta wrap up in a little bit, but I guess that kind of also makes me wonder if there's going to be other original characters other than Mitsuki.
Yeah, I don't know where they would put another original character in, or with who, or they could make like, or they could do like what they do with Shing Sai in Dynasty Warriors, like make an original character based on combinations of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sasuke, I think was another one. I mean, of course, he's a popular ninja, but he's like a quote unquote original character based on a whole bunch of characters. And technically, Magoichi Saika is an original character because what they did was they put all the Magoichis into one and created him. And
really?
I think they did the same thing with Kotaro Fuma, that there's like historically like more than one Kotaro. And
okay, so they were going off of
all the Kotaros together.
So they were going off of like titles then, because that's a thing that like unrelated franchise and series, like in Onimusha, in the second game you play as a character named Jubei Yagyu, but Jubei is a title of like the head of the clan. So I guess like in that retrospect they could say, well, you're basically playing a character based on a multitude of different head of clans for this particular clan.
Yeah, I feel like they could do that. I mean, it's very possible that they could combine like Aikida Sen and Magoichi and make Magoichi into a woman, which I know that if they were to do something like that, Capcom would be banging on their doors like really?
Yeah.
We got a female Magoichi too, so.
Yeah, so it's an interesting idea to like think about, like, okay, we got one original character, maybe there could be another. There could be some other things with other characters where, like, I know we were talking about Masayuki earlier, where like they could do they could do some things where they take some aspects of Yukimura and implement his character into that character, or vice versa. So it's
well, basically, like, from what Spirit of Sanada showed me, that Yukimura was essentially a stand-in for Masayuki up until they added him into the game, because, like, historically around, like, Nagashino, Kawanakajima, and all that, like, Yukimura wasn't even born for Kawanakajima. And he was probably about, like, maybe 4 or 5 years old during Nagashino. So now that Masayuki is in the game, I don't see them putting Yukimura in until, like much later, like the first battle of Ueda Castle, or even like after that.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of different ways they could go about this. I guess another thing too, though, is like they could do a thing where like if they wanted to have like a rival character, give like Mitsuhide like OC daughter as well. I know like he has Gracia, but like if they added in another character like that, right, where it's an OC, and they have like a rival between Mitsuki and that OC who's Mitsuhide's daughter, right? There could be a whole nother plot thread with that where it's like, oh, this shit happened, and now like, well, your dad's dead, but you're not, and I'm going after you because your clan is kind of responsible for what happened to my clan. So I could see maybe like that potential route. There's a lot of different ways
I think
that
would be one way to piss off the fan base. Because Gracia is like, she's the most popular female in the series, so if they took her out and put like some OC character of Mitsuhide, like the fan base is gonna go like start knocking on the door like, yo, what the hell?
Yeah, where's my samurai pop idol waifu? Like,
exactly.
Which, yeah, that would be something. But I think like, but I guess in retrospect though, I don't think it would be so bad because at least I don't think she died during those events. I think she was fine with her husband.
During what, Honoji?
Yeah, post Honoji, post Yamazaki, because she was like with another clan at that point, right? So like,
yeah, she was in the Hosokawa at that point. Yeah.
I know there was like a whole other thing with her though, like in relation to like her marriage, and like I think she had like I want to say she had like a belief in Christianity, because that was like another thing that was going around at the time too. But
yeah, she was one of the most famous Christians of the era.
Yeah, so
and her Christianity, she Mitsunari was going after her to try to get her as a hostage, to try to get Tadaoki to join the Western Army, and he refused at first because I think he was on the Tokugawa side, or I think he was on the fence, like he was like, I don't know who I want to join. So Mitsunari came into the Hosokawa Manor and tried to kidnap Gracia, and because she was a Christian, she wasn't permitted to kill herself. So she made her staff kill her, and so that Mitsunari won't get her body.
Yeah,
one of those, like, oh, you won't take me alive kind of things, and then that caused Tadaoki to officially join the Eastern Army.
Yeah, so I guess in that regard, like if they want to be like super historically accurate, right? Like I guess there's no right way to go about it. Your waifu is going to die.
Exactly.
I feel
they really don't have Gracia ever die in any of the games.
So it would be different too, like so. I guess Empires would be the only exception just because of officer execution, but that's because I'm a piece of shit and I like executing all my enemies.
Oh, I usually I kill my enemies too in Empires.
Yeah, but
I noticed one thing about Gracia is that none of the characters ever refer to her as her name. Like, one thing that I've noticed, like in Samurai Warriors 2, 3, 4, any subsequent titles, like they'll say like you, or like they'll just kind of like look at her like it's you, or they have like a nickname for her, or
yeah, I think they do that in Warriors Orochi as well.
Yeah, like they call her like little girl, or you, or Mitsuhide's daughter, or Mitsuhide would say my daughter this or my daughter that. No character ever refers to her as her name, Gracia.
It might be a thing of I could see it possibly being a thing of like where they have an issue with saying like the name in Japanese, probably, or it could also be a thing of like just yeah, and then also just too historically speaking, like that like Christianity being like kind of frowned upon around that time period. I could also see that where they're trying to be like, well, yeah, I mean, this is what you are, but like we kind of don't really associate with that, and you know, but that's a whole nother like historical thing, and I don't really want to get into all that, but yeah, there's a lot of different directions they could go with like all these different characters, really, and just because they added in one OC, by the way, like, you know, one character can really change the whole dynamic of the entire story, I think. But really, to wrap things up, I'm gonna ask 9 and 10 now. Samurai Warriors 5 is slated for June 27th release of this year. Will you be pre-ordering it? And do you have any final thoughts? For me?
Yes, I will be pre-ordering.
For me, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. You're good.
No, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be pre-ordering. Yeah, so... But,
Yes.
I'm assuming you wanted to share your final thoughts, so I'll let you go.
No, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna pre-order because usually when I pre-order these games, like if I don't pre-order, the stores don't get these games. And I'm like really close. I'm like a 10-minute walk from GameStop, so I'll go over to GameStop. And what I like the most about pre-ordering is I can just put like $5, $5, $5. You know, I don't have to buy like a PlayStation card and spend like $60 on the system itself. So yeah, I'll be pre-ordering. You know, I'm really excited. We've waited 7 years for the next Samurai Warriors game.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah,
it's been so long. You know, I really love the franchise, so I'm really excited for the you know, for this rendition. I think the story's going to be great. I'm excited to see who the who the next characters are. And I think it's a really ballsy move, honestly, from Koei to completely reboot the series. You know, a lot of people will say, like, oh, the Musou series is getting pretty stale, so aren't you going to do something new? And for Koei just to go smack right in and say, yo, we're rebooting the series. We're redesigning everybody. You know, like, everybody's brand new. You know, and taking influence possibly from Neo, taking influence from other games as well, to their new renditions of these characters. From like when I was watching the live stream a couple days ago, they were saying that like it's a brand new cast or brand new staff of people working on this game, but all these people have played the previous Samurai Warriors game, so bring in people who have played the previous Samurai Warriors games and letting them put their renditions in of certain characters, I think it's really, really cool. And I guess I'm just looking forward to seeing, like, you know, what's next, you know, what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I think that's, like, it's really crazy to think about, like, because this is, like, a series that I, like, grew up with. Like, when this series was, like, first coming out, I was, like 6 or 7 years old. Like, I was like really young, so like I've literally been growing up with this series, and to kind of see how things are changing, it's kind of interesting. Like, I never necessarily agreed with the like some of the complaints that some people make, where like, oh, these games are literally the same game over and over and over again. It's like, well, not really. If you actually sit down and play these games and really get into these games, like, they're very different from one another. It's just that on surface level, they're basically taking what works for their series and just doing the thing that's familiar and that sells for them, right? So it's like, I guess in that like aspect, it's one of those things of, if it's not broken, don't really fix it. But in this case, it's more. It's not. It's not really like a full-on reboot, because they're technically still numbering it. It's more like a soft reset of sorts, or a soft reboot. So like, even though we are starting fresh, we are still getting some of the things that like we're familiar with. So I guess in that regard, it's really exciting to see what they could be doing and what's going to change, even though there are a lot of concerns. Like, don't get me wrong, like, as hyped as I am concerned about it. But I am, and so is Nikki, and I think both of us, like, and feel free to disagree with me if I'm wrong, but like, I think we're going into this as cautiously optimistic about it as possible, because it's like there's a lot of familiarity with this game, but there's a lot of new things that are kind of like, we're just going to have to wait and see if we're going to end up liking this stuff or really hating this stuff. But ultimately, I think both of us are pretty impressed by what we're seeing so far.
Oh yeah, I'm really impressed. Like the art design looks nice, the characters look really nice. I haven't seen too much of gameplay yet, so I like my stylish gameplay, so I hope it's nice. I hope we got a lot of enemies, and I hope the difficulty curve is pretty, lenient, and I hope it's pretty difficult too. Like I don't want to just, cut through enemies like butter. Like I want to kick some ass too, and I want to look good doing it. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, come in with a cautious optimism,
But anyway, I think we've kind of talked about everything we possibly could for this podcast. So, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Miss_Catatonic. You can also find me on Twitch at NeroCatatonic. I'm also on TikTok as under NeroCatatonic as well. And I just kind of post gameplay stuff, and sometimes I'll post like silly videos. I think, yeah, that's about it. You can find me. I have a Discord channel, but it's like really small, and I'm not really doing much with it, so I'm not going to bother with details for that. But yeah, just find me on Twitch and Twitter if you can find me.
Yep. And then you guys can find me as biodevil_dom. You guys know that I'm on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch on occasions, and I'm doing an RE video, and I'm doing a bunch of reviews that are taking forever, but those are getting done. And also I've been recently streaming a little bit more often on Twitch. I recently just did Samurai Warriors 2 Empires, so if you want to check out one of my streams whenever I do stream, on the off chance that I do, you can find me there as well. But anyway, that's pretty much all we have for today. We'll see you all in the next one.
All right, see ya.
Yep. Bye.